Yeah. Captain Marcus Canady. Currently, I am the executive assistant to the assistant commandant for resources.
Perfect.
It's Marcus. Canady is Canady.
I feel like
Nice.
I'm in a civilian world, if you will. So
All right. So you're a GS employee for us now.
I am, yes, sir.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you. It's phenomenal to be here, especially right here, right now, talking to a leader because I love leadership and mentorship.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So for you, what is your favorite style of leadership?
So I would say my favorite style of leadership is intrusive leadership. So I would say that this has kind of been a journey for me in understanding this leadership style and it becoming my favorite leadership style. I think if you would have asked me a couple of years ago, you might have gotten a different answer. You might have gotten servant leadership as my favorite leadership style. But because of some recent events, mainly the George Floyd murder and some things that were personally going on with me, I ended up thinking one day and having a conversation with another junior officer and really sitting back thinking to myself that in that moment where I was struggling mentally and emotionally as an African American wearing this uniform, seeing what was going on in the country, that nobody at the job was taking the time to check up on me, taking the time to check up on Marcus, right? And I was expected as an officer, and at the time I was a commanding officer, to continue doing the job, to continue doing the mission, make sure that the aircraft were where they needed to be, when they needed to be there, doing the things that they were supposed to be doing. But nobody was really checking to make sure that I was okay personally. And then having some conversations with some other members, end up realizing that what I was feeling, they were feeling as well. And nobody was asking them how they were doing. So I ended up writing an article about that. And the response that I got from the article was tremendous. I had a lot of friends reach out to me, classmates reach out to me, mentees, mentors, people that didn't even know me started reaching out. And I think for the first time, the organization really started to have some difficult conversations surrounding some sensitive topics, you can say. Now, I say difficult, but I also say that these conversations are necessary in increasing workplace unity, team cohesion, all of these things, right? So I started thinking about my favorite mentors, my favorite leaders that I have worked for and that I would love to work for again. Some that have retired and I still have relationships with. And the one thing that was common with all of them is that they were intentional about building a trusting relationship with me and making sure that I knew that I was supported as a person, not just as a pilot, not just as a Coast Guard officer or employee. So then I started researching a little bit more about this intrusive leadership style. And it just, through the research, it really got me even more excited and more passionate about this leadership style. Now, personally, I think that I have always led this way. I have always valued the impact you can have when you truly get to know somebody and when you truly make sure that that person is valued and you go above and beyond to make sure that they understand that you see them in their authentic self, that you value them, and that you want them to be successful in the way that they define success. So I kind of felt like I was always doing this, but in researching the leadership style more and having conversations and kind of doing a deep dive into it in an academic sense, I got even more passionate about it. And I think that personally, I think that I have even gotten better in my leadership skills, understanding different perspectives, looking at the impacts that this leadership style has more holistically in other areas, dealing with suicides, dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion, things like that. So definitely right now, my answer to that question is intrusive leadership. For me, I would say that it's a leader that understands that they have to be intentional in building a trusting relationship with their employees so they know the right way in how to inspire, motivate, and support that person as a whole person, dealing with their professional concerns, interests, as well as their personal. And I think really the difference that I hone in on is understanding that when you're talking to that machinist technician, that culinary specialist, that lawyer, that pilot, the person driving the boat, that you're also talking to a husband, you're talking to a mother, you're talking to a father, you're talking to a person. And what might be the issue at the job, the actual underlining issue could be an issue at home. And understanding that there are things that our members are dealing with on a daily basis. And they always can't leave those problems on the pier when they go onto the ship. Sometimes those things follow them. And also understanding that, I know for me, I say the officer, the pilot is about 15% of who I am. The rest of me is 85%, right? Intrusive leaders understand that people are going to make decisions about that 15% and how it affects the 85%. And so I think that the foundational principle is understanding that you're dealing with the whole person. And intrusive leaders make the concerted effort to truly get to know their people so that they have an understanding of the best way to be a leader for them.
That's leadership.
So my definition for intrusive leadership is a leadership style that uses intentional actions to inspire, motivate, and support people through a trusting relationship that deals with the whole person in addressing professional as well as personal concerns and interests. Okay, so I will tell you that anybody that knows me will tell you that I've always been a proud African American. And I think with the murder of George Floyd, in addition to the murder of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, the Christian Cooper situation, I honestly think for the first time in my life that I was truly struggling emotionally with what I was seeing playing out in this country. And it was really tough for me to compartmentalize those emotions just because I was at the workplace. I often say in describing this moment that because I'm a proud African American in uniform, that I've kind of always felt like I had a mask on, where I had to conceal or cover up certain things that were important to me in order to fit in order to make sure that I was liked by my counterparts and make sure that they were comfortable. So I kind of felt like during this time it was COVID and I had two masks on, and those masks were a little bit tight. And at the time I was in Houston, and I actually had to, when I leave the house to go to the job, I have to pass by where George Floyd is buried. And so it's kind of it was really an emotional thing that was going on. And so, like I said, for me, I really do honestly think for the first time, like, I really needed to talk to somebody about what I was experiencing and what I was going through. But I really do think that the flashpoint for me in that moment was when I saw a junior officer, another African American, and it was instant. When I saw him, I knew that he was going through something too, and it was an unspoken thing, and we just sat down in my office and we started talking. I was able to provide him an opportunity to talk through his emotions, release a little bit, and I needed that as well. So I honestly think that had it not been for that interaction, I probably just would have dealt with my own emotions myself. But seeing that he needed something and I was able to provide that need for him made me think that there were other people that needed it as well. And how are they going to fulfill that need? How was somebody going to address that? So the article was simply just something that says that this is something that we know how to do. When the Coast Guard went through the lapse of appropriation, it was understood that people, because they were not getting paid and mortgages were due, rent was due, grocery bills needed to be paid, because people knew that members were being stressed out dealing with those things. At the job, we started asking questions about how they were handling things at home. So the idea that people are dealing with stuff outside the workplace that can cause them mental, some sort of mental anguish, that it impacts them in the workplace is not foreign. I think for the organization, for a lot of people, the idea of dealing with racism, systematic discrimination, systematic racism, white supremacy, all of those things was just something that we weren't supposed to talk about at the job. And so since for a lot of people, I would say for a good number of people that this was impacting, because it wasn't everybody, that moment and the need to talk about it was being overlooked. So the article was just simply to say, we know how to do this. We need to do it in this moment. And when people, I was really surprised by the impact that article had, or I would say the reception that I got from it. A lot of people reached out, and more importantly, people reaching out. What was really more important was that people started talking to each other. I had friends that reached out to me to say, my supervisor came and sat down and talked to me about me for the first time. And that's the impact. Like, the impact is not them reading, like, knowing me. That's the impact. People actually talking to each other, people that they've been working side by side for years and never really simply asked about them individually. And that moment is what kind of started this journey of being a champion for intrusive leadership.
That's a wrap. Man,